Hello, good evening. Welcome. So, after perusing my library, I honed in on Real Alchemy, a primer of practical alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett. So, yeah, I've looked through this book quite a lot through the time that I've had it, but I've never read it from front to back, and I'd really like to. So, let's check it out. Kids, don't try this at home. The practice of real alchemy is inherently dangerous. Formal laboratory training is encouraged. Consulting a licensed physician is encouraged before consuming herbal preparations. Familiarize yourself with the laws that may apply to you in your jurisdiction and act accordingly. Read as many of the other books on the subject of alchemy as possible. A list of recommended books can be found in the bibliography. Learn as much as you can from a qualified teacher. And above all, know the theory before attempting the practice. This book is sold for informational purposes. The author and publisher will not be held accountable for the use or misuse of the information in this book. Hey, Genevieve, welcome in. Preface to the Ibis Press edition by Brian Cotnoir, author of The Wiser, Concise Guide to Alchemy. As sentient, self-aware beings, we have been engaged in the quest for more, the quest for better, and the quest for perfection since we first stood upright and uttered our first words. To take what has been given to us and transform it, hoping and praying for the better, lies at the heart of what has been called the royal art, the way of the philosopher, or simply the art, that is, alchemy. The art and science of alchemy has been found throughout many times and regions. We can speak of Chinese alchemy, Indian alchemy, Hellenistic, Arabic, and European. Some have focused on matter, some have focused on soul, and others have a double focus on body and soul. Such as alchemy is not a smooth, monolithic system, but rather a journey full of contradictions, false turns, and dazzling insights into the worlds of creation. Sorry, buddy. At times, it seems to defy a single definition, but in its most general, all-encompassing form, we can say with some degree of confidence that alchemy is the art and science of bringing something to its final perfection. That something may be corporeal or incorporeal, and the processes involved are those of dissolution and composition. The Greeks called alchemy chemia. They also used the words chrysopoeia and agropoeia. Poia? Let's see how you say it. Chrysopoeia. Pronunciation. Chrysopia?
Chrysopia.
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 Chrysopia. Okay. So they also use the words chrysopia and chrysopia. All right, we'll look up that one too. Chrysopia and agriopia. Probably, but let's find out. Agriopia. Well, Agropoeia. Agriopia. Oh, right. Gold and silver. Okay. I'm just going to guess it out and continue. Hey, that way. Welcome in. I love you too. Oh my gosh, it's so warm, you guys. We're gonna make it. Okay, let me get my knee up here. All right. The Greeks called alchemy chemia. They also used the words chrysopia, and agriopia, literally gold making and silver making, respectively. Pia. The pia part, Poeia, the pia part of the word means make or compose. It is where we get our English word poetry. Poia, chrysopoia, and agriopoia. The poia part of the word means make or compose. It is where we get our English word poetry. In Plato's Symposium, Socrates recounts how the philosopher Diotima, while instructing him, once said, quote, "There is poetry, which, as you know, is complex and manifold. All creation, or passage of non-being into being, is poetry, or making, and the processes of all art are creative, and the masters of arts are all poets or makers," end quote. And just as music is composed out of the elements of sound and silence, and poetry out of the elements of words and letters, so the art of alchemy is composed out of elements, the elements of matter and soul. And so, with its basis in the material, alchemy could be considered the poetry of matter. We follow the rules of composition, working with the elements, as in music or in language. What are the elements of alchemy? In general, the alchemists and philosophers speak of 4 elements: fire, air, water, earth, or of 3 principles: mercury, sulfur, and salt. The main processes are dissolution and composition. Quote, if you do not skin the bodies of their corporeal nature, and if you do not give a corporeal nature to incorporeal beings, then nothing you wait for will take place, end quote. Hermes shows here the heart of the alchemical process, the change of something into its opposite, and of taking apart and putting back together again. Maria, the Jewess, one of our mothers of alchemy, alluding to Hermes, elucidates the role of opposites in the act of creation when she says, quote, make the corporeal, make the corporeal incorporeal, and the incorporeal corporeal. Join male and female, and you shall have what you seek, end quote. Alchemy can be understood as the release of soul from the body and its subsequent reunion with it. This is the essence of the secret of composition, and it is in the composing that we find the final perfection, and the key to this final perfection comes from us, as we read in the Liber de Compositione Alchemiae, where the monk Morinus answers Khalid ibn Yazid, quote, this matter comes from you. You are yourself the source, where it is found and whence it is taken, end quote. Bam. Alchemy is said to be physical or spiritual, but the fact is, it is both. It has not always been practiced as both. There have been alchemists who dispensed with the superstitions of magic squares, planetary rulership, etc., to focus on their dialogue with matter. And there were others who have focused on the uplift of their soul, leaving behind the dross of alembics, retorts, and furnaces. Each aspect is like seeing with one eye, each correct and accurate on its own. But yet, there is more. We have seen all 3D viewers that take 2 photographs, each offset by a bit that when viewed, pop into 3 dimensions. The split between the physical and the spiritual interpretations of alchemy are like this. Each photograph is accurate and complete and can stand on its own, as can each interpretation of alchemy. But it is when we put them together that the almost magical experiences of 3 dimensions occur, something more than each eye alone could imagine. This is what the Is this what the alchemists thought? Not in all cases, but alchemy is the richest when it is seen with both eyes. Listen to how Zosimos of Panopolis expresses this unity of the work in a letter to a sister. Let your body rest, calm your passions, resist desire, pleasure, anger, sorrow, and the dozen fatalities of death. In thus conducting yourself, you will call to you the divine being, and the divine being will come to you, he who is everywhere and nowhere. Operating in this manner, you will obtain the proper, authentic, and natural tinctures. Make these things until you become perfect in your soul. I like that. Much has been written on the psychological and spiritual aspects of alchemy, but it is the practical aspect with its variety, materials, and processes that causes confusion and puzzlement. What is actually done in physical alchemy? Put simply, alchemy begins with the body. It begins with the material, begins with the here and now. As Morenus said, referring to the materials of the great work, quote, I will both bring before you the things called by these names, that you may see them, as well as work with them in your presence. Do not depart from that which I have set forth for you and shown you, for you will go astray, end quote. And it is in this tradition that Robert Allen Bartlett in Real Alchemy shows the how and what of alchemy. Please know that these practices and materials are very real, and there is risk in this work, just as in chemistry. But with the necessary precautions, for those who do venture forth, there is real wisdom to be found. When this practice is joined with the intent to heal or something positive, things happen. Start slowly and mindfully. Put consistent effort behind the work and go through a few of the processes at a time. The basics are here, but reach into the primary sources from which these practices come and read them against your own practice and results. Dig into it, ask questions of the matter at hand, investigate it, and not timidly. Soon you will clearly see that it is not a metaphor for something else, but rather that alchemy is fundamentally about transmutation in the physical world, of change from poison to medicine, from sickness to health, poverty to wealth, and ignorance to wisdom. Ultimately, what you bring to the practice is where alchemy begins. And that's from Ramazan in 2008, Istanbul, Turkey. Ooh. Man, I really want to visit Turkey. All right, let me show you this cool picture. Real Alchemy. Animalia. Mineralia, and Vegetabalia. Maybe they're both Mineralia. Ooh, let me show you the front picture too, because this is on the front as well, but differently. It's colored. I know there's a glare. Here we go. Isn't that a cool cover? Right? I love it. I'll just show you this since I'm already in. Isn't that beautiful? I like it. Okay, we'll get into the forward next. Let me just get to this 1, 3, 6. Just a little bit more. There we go. Okay, sweat rag. Forward by Dennis William Hauck, Hauck. Cool. Words and letters. The book before you is an amazing accomplishment in many ways. My friend and fellow alchemist Robert Bartlett has laid bare the secret processes and experiments of our discipline with exceptional clarity and openness. He has exposed the hermetic origins of alchemy and shown how modern alchemists approach the ancient art. But first and foremost, this book is a revelation of the genuine craft of alchemy as it was meant to be practiced. While the work of Carl Jung and others have underscored the archetypal power of universal significance of alchemical symbols, alchemy itself is much more than a psychological commentary on the nature of the human psyche. It is true that alchemy reflects the highest aspirations of the human soul, for our gold has always symbolized the hastened perfection of man as well as matter. However, any alchemist worth his salt knows um, that lasting transformation only takes place when the work is accomplished on all levels of reality. The metal, or rather, the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. The great work is actual work to be done with the hands, the heart, and the soul, and not just understood with the mind. A medieval alchemist brought back to our era would be highly amused at the endless discussions among modern theorists as to the nature and depth of alchemy, or its sudden blossoming into the offices of psychiatrists and New Age counselors. Quote, "Has no one ever tried it?" he would ask incredulously. Incred, incred, incredulously? Incredulously? Incredulously. Quote, "What good is such understanding without its practical application in the world?" End quote. No alchemist in history ever thought the secret art was solely a mental discipline. The work of transformation takes place in the real world. Yet alchemy is not chemistry. Chemistry is a superficial science that deals only with the external forms in which the elements manifest. A chemist seeks to rearrange atoms and molecules to exhibit different properties of the same dead material. An alchemist seeks to create an entirely new substance by exposing its essences, bringing them alive, and causing them to grow. When an alchemist performs a laboratory experiment, it is the culmination of careful planning to find the right timing and personal purification to create the sacred space in which the transformation can take place. The alchemist becomes an ingredient in his own experiment, and his intention and passion contribute to the outcome. I think that's why my first healing was so powerful. Annie D, welcome in. Awesome. It was the culmination of so many perfect timings and yeah, the eclipse, the full moon, all of it, right? He suffers as the essences are teased and tortured from the substance, and he is elated when the hidden spark of truth brings the dead matter back to life on a new level of being. Admittedly, this is a strange way of looking at laboratory work in a materialistic, industrialized world, and there are many prejudices the modern mind must overcome to accept the possibility that alchemy is real. Yet perhaps after reading this book with a free heart and open mind, you might find an ancient voice speaking to you through the drone of appliances, engines, and commercial broadcasts that make up our environment. The voice will whisper, "But have you tried it?" Oh, Madeep, welcome in, my friend. Welcome. Happy hot Friday night. It's hot. Oh, I'm a sweat ball. Dennis William Hawk is an author, consultant, and lecturer working to facilitate personal and institutional transformation through the application of the ancient principles of alchemy. As one of the world's few practicing alchemists, he writes and lectures on the universal principles of physical, psychological, and spiritual perfection to a wide variety of audiences that range from scientists and business leaders to religious and New Age groups. He is the editor of the Alchemy Journal and on the board of directors of the International Alchemy Guild. His best-selling books include The Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation, Penguin Putnam, 1999, and The Sorcerer's Stone, A Beginner's Guide to Alchemy, Citadel Press, 2004. Cool. I don't think I have any of his books. I have some other alchemy books, but I don't think I have any of his. Preface. These days, the word alchemy is lumped together with psychic phenomena, ghost hunters, UFO sightings, and other dark arts. Everyone has heard of such things, but only a few know more of the details, especially those concerning alchemy. A few years ago, my wife was in a class for hypnotherapy certification, and she happened to mention that I had an interest in alchemy. Everyone was intrigued. They asked if I would be willing to give a 2 or 3 hour presentation on the subject. My hesitant reply was, "Yeah, I can do that." That first time I talked for 5 hours. People were entranced and asked if we could have another class to continue. Before I could finish constructing an outline for the second class, I received a call asking if we could make the whole presentation 3 6-hour classes. Since then, I've been teaching the classes each year. There is a real thirst out there for information on the practical alchemical arts. This book is something of the transcription from those classes and will provide a short primer for those interested in exploring firsthand the sacred science and royal art, which is alchemy. And I mean, there's a cool little picture here. I'll show you. Hey, No Capitals, welcome in. There's lots of little pictures throughout this. Ooh, a phoenix. Cool. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Real Alchemy. Now I will teach and describe the secret of the arts, which secret is at the heart of all secrets hidden in the art of alchemy. Since one will here understand the wonderful works that God has accomplished in all things he has made out of the 4 elements, for I shall here teach you to know the spirit of herbs, trees, and all growing things, how to separate them from their bodies, and also how to purify the 4 elements and restore them to their first being and their perfect power. That is, that when the elements are purified, how they can be put together again and made a perfect and fixed body of them, which is the glorified, which is then glorified and has a miraculous effect. Isaac Holland, Opera Vegetabilia, 15th century. Vegetabilia. Introduction. Practical alchemy. What is this? Okay. Rah. Okay. When we mention the word alchemy, most people think that means a now discredited method of turning lead into gold. Then we have, I wonder if you guys heard that. There was a bunch of knocking. It's probably somebody at the bar. Okay. So lead into gold. When we have the psychologists after Jung who tell us that alchemy, with its fantastic imagery, is only a metaphor, that is to say, that alchemy is an allegory describing the processes of psychological reintegration, many believe this is the new and correct interpretation of the alchemist's riddle. It's all psychology. You know, I sometimes wonder, I think that maybe some of the hey Pearl, welcome in, happy Friday. It is Friday, right? Yeah, tomorrow I work in the morning. Sometimes I think that maybe Carl Jung said some of the things that he did just because it's like, I don't know if this is true, but like to put you off the path. Like Sir Francis Bacon. Okay. Yet, if we look into the lives of the alchemists themselves, we find they were indeed involved in laboratory work that appears to be similar to what we call chemistry today. Alchemy has been described by many of the ancient masters as a sort of celestial agriculture. I like that definition. Me too! That's awesome! Celestial agriculture. It is amazing that alchemy, once called the divine art, or sacred science, has fallen into such obscurity that it is now only remembered as the primitive beginnings of modern chemistry. And yet alchemy lies at the root of every Western esoteric tradition, as well as many of the arts and sciences, including medicine and pharmacology. Alchemy has been called quote, the mother of all science and wisdom, end quote. Celestial agriculture. I want to write that down. That's awesome. That's sweet. In a nutshell, alchemy is an ancient art and science concerning the mysteries of life, of consciousness, and its evolution. Currently, there are many people who latch on to the word alchemy and attach it to any number of New Age transformative tools, such as alchemical massage or alchemical hypnotherapy, because alchemy is associated with the transmutation or transformation of something of little worth into something of great value. In the following pages, we're going to explore alchemy, the real alchemy. This means we will be exploring practical laboratory alchemy. We will include here the history, theory, and simple practices that anyone can use to prepare herbal and mineral extracts in the ancient tradition. Boom! This is cool. Who am I? That's a question mark. Who am I? And where is this information coming from? I've been exploring alchemy since I was about 12 years old. I've had a laboratory of my own in one form or another since even before then. In 1974, I began an intensive study of alchemy at the Paracelsus Research Society, PRS, later called Paracelsus College, and located in Salt Lake City, Utah. The classes were taught by Dr. Albert Riedel, who preferred to be known as Father Albertus. Father Albertus was one of the most well-known practical alchemists of the 20th century. He also taught classes in Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, and Australia. The classes took place on a small campus composed of a dormitory, a lecture hall, and a laboratory. Class size was limited to 12 students, and contact with the outside world was not encouraged. No radios, TVs, phones, or newspapers, so the student could fully immerse himself in the teachings. It was a mystery school. The classes ran Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with homework and lab work that ran continuously for 2 weeks each year, over 7 years. At the end of each 2-week class, the students were given work to accomplish in preparation for the next year's class. By 1976, I decided to return to the university. Let's try that again. Have a wonderful night, Genevieve. I love ya. By 1976, I decided to return to a university where I could finish my degree in chemistry in hopes of one day working at Paralab, the commercial offshoot of the PRS that would be opening soon. Paralab offered a line of herbal and mineral preparations formulated along alchemical principles for research and alternative healthcare practices. After graduation in 1979, I was appointed chief chemist at Paralab and remained in that position until its closure in late 1983. Frater Albertus, is it Frater? Is that how you say it? Frater? Father? Frater Albertus passed away in 1984. I have been a professional chemist since that time and have worked on my own projects through the years. Being employed as a research and analytical chemist has allowed me to collect state-of-the-art analytical data on many products from alchemical experiments, and so begin to answer some of the questions modern science would ask concerning these materials. Frater Albertus. Let's find out how you pronounce it. Is it Frater or Frater? Or something else?
Frater.
Frater. Frater. Okay, Frater. Cool. I'm glad we did that. Mr. Hugh, welcome in. Osimo. Happy Friday night, man. Frater Albertus had a simple definition of what alchemy is about. He said that alchemy was about evolution and raising the vibratory rate. To understand that correctly requires some understanding of natural laws and some introduction to mysticism or occult philosophy. The information being taught here is an ageless wisdom handed down for centuries by the oral tradition and later in a necessarily obscure language and symbolism. It is called the Hermetic philosophy, after its legendary founder Hermes Trismegistus, the Greek name for the Egyptian god Thoth, god of wisdom and inventor of all science and magic. The ancient sages often referred to themselves as the sons of Hermes or the sons of wisdom. The earliest descriptions of alchemy link it to transformations in matter through the influence of light or spirit or fire. It is the metamorphosis of matter orchestrated by spirit. It is generally agreed that ancient Egypt is the birthplace of alchemy, as it is known in the Western world, and it is there that we begin our exploration. Chapter 1: A Brief History of Alchemy. The origins of alchemy are lost in history, and theories abound as to where it might have originated, such as God taught it to Adam and later to Moses, and fallen angels taught it to human women in exchange for sex. Also, it is a remnant of lost Atlantean technology, and extraterrestrials taught it to our ancestors. Whatever its true origin is, recorded history documents an esoteric tradition that has existed for several thousand years. Mystery and magic permeate all that is ancient Egypt. From beginning to end, Egypt has been called a theocratic state, ruled by a very powerful priesthood. The priesthood was divided into various castes, each with specific duties, such as scribes and astronomers. Of special interest to us are the priests, who worked with materials in ways we might describe today as chemistry. These priests, often working under an oath of secrecy regarding their art, developed skills in metallurgy, ceramics, medicine, mummification, and winemaking, to name just a few. You know what? Wine. I don't know. I don't know what. Do I? Maybe. The study of the all I was thinking was just that, like, I'm looking forward to drinking some wine on vacation with my family in this next month. For some reason, it's got to be the wine. For some reason, that's the thing. I'll take it a sip at a time and see how it goes. If I don't enjoy the way it makes my body feel, then that's just fine. I don't have to keep drinking, right? Yeah. But I'm looking forward to the wine. It's natural. It's also ancient. The study of the operative forces at work in the universe was the primary goal of the priesthood. They called these forces the neteru, Neteru, from which we obtain our word nature, neteru. The neteru are the forces of nature. Cool. I like that. From the small number of writings which remain to us, it is apparent that these priests were skilled healers who possessed a materials science, much of which is still a mystery to us. There are always two parts to these sciences. One was mental, spiritual, and the other physical. For example, the preparation of a medicine included the processing of a material accompanied by certain words, spells, incantations, or rituals. And in prescribing, the patient was given the medicine with instructions to repeat a spell or prayer. The proper timing of these things was equally important. In the Egyptian mysteries, man was composed of various spiritual and mental components, as well as the physical component, and each had its proper medicine, or medicine in quotes. These secret sciences advanced over time, and tales of wondrous healing oils, life-giving potions, and imitations of gold and precious stones have survived even to our day. When ancient tomb robbers would plunder a pharaoh's tomb, these precious oils were one of the first things to be stolen. They were considered to be as precious as gold and easier to carry and sell. Stolen gold was heavy and had to be melted down before you could sell it. When Alexander the Great arrived in Egypt around 300 BCE, he fell in love with the whole culture, and the Egyptians welcomed him with open arms. This began the so-called Greco-Egyptian or Ptolemaic period of Egyptian history. The Greeks called Egypt Kem or Kemet. This literally meant the Black Land, and is in reference to the thick layer of dark, fertile soil deposited by the annual flooding of the Nile. Knowledge of Egyptian secret sciences made its way into Greece, where it was called chemia, the black art, and spawned a long line of Greek alchemists. In Egypt, Alexander initiated a sweeping campaign of construction and restoration, including the city named after him, Alexandria. The Great Library of Alexandria is legendary. It has been estimated that this library contained nearly 1,000,000 volumes of the collected writings of the known world. Scholars from everywhere flocked to Alexandria, and it became a melting pot of ideas and philosophies. It is here that the Hermetic philosophy and alchemy congealed as a path to spiritual attainment, and its secrets were only revealed to initiates under an oath of silence. By around 30 BCE, the Roman legions had swept the world, and the last of the Egyptian Ptolemies had fallen to Roman rule. During this insurgence, a very large part of the Great Library was destroyed by fire. Initially, Rome was tolerant of Egyptian ways. In fact, the worship of Isis spread well into the Roman world, with temples in Rome itself. As the early Roman emperors became converted to Christianity, this level of tolerance dropped off. In 290 CE, the Emperor Diocletian feared that the influx of imitation gold produced by the Egyptian art could disrupt the Roman economy. Fearing also that it would allow someone to gather enough wealth to form an army which could move against Rome, Diocletian passed an edict calling for the destruction of all texts and materials dealing with the manufacture of gold and precious stones. This order was carried out with great severity. Wow. Nice. Oh my. Well, I hope that doesn't happen ever again for you, Pearl. Most of those practicing the Hermetic philosophy fled the country and migrated east to Arab lands not occupied by Rome. The early Persian caliphs were much more hospitable to the alchemists, and the center of the art shifted there, although in a much more guarded capacity. It was here that the Arabic prefix al was added to the Greek chemia to give us alchemia, later to become alchemy. Scientific pursuits in early Christian Rome became dormant for centuries. With the fall of the Roman Empire, the civilized world was thrown into chaos, thus begun the Dark Ages. Beginning with the Islamic invasions around 800 CE, knowledge of alchemy spread into Western Europe, largely through the works of Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna. Avicenna. He formulated a medical system that was popular for several centuries. Another was Abu Musa Jabir Ibn Hayyan. IBN. Let's find out how to say it. Frater.
pronouncenames.com.
Ibn.
Okay, thank you. It's Moroccan. Oh,
Ibn.
submitted from Morocco. It's Arabic. Okay. Ibn. Awesome. Okay. Works of Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna. He formulated a medical system that was popular for several centuries. Another was Abu Musa Jabir ibn Hayyan. Jabir had a very cryptic style of writing, designed to conceal alchemical secrets. It is from his name that we derive our word for gibberish. Ha ha, Jabir. Gibber, gibber, Jabir. They collected many of the ancient Egyptians and Greek alchemical works and translated them into Arabic, which were later translated into Latin in Europe. In medieval Europe, alchemy became very fashionable. By now, kings and rulers everywhere had heard of the wonders possible through alchemy, especially the turning of lead into gold. Alchemy, as a means to making gold, became a popular pursuit by the rich and the poor. There were also a great number of cons and scams perpetrated by those who pretended to know the secrets of the alchemists. Many unsuspecting people lost their life savings in hopes of finding a way to inexhaustible wealth. Alchemy began to acquire a bad reputation as a fraud because of this, and people began to distrust the whole matter without really knowing anything about the true alchemical art. Then, around 1310, Pope John the 22nd, issued a decree prohibiting the practice of alchemy, and gold making in particular, with heavy fines against those who traded in alchemical gold. In 1404, King Henry VI of England issued an act declaring gold making a crime against the crown. Haha, there's what bitches. That was upsetting the apple cart of the royalty. Oh shit, okay. By the 15th century, the invention of the printing press made knowledge more available to the public. Texts about alchemy became very popular and began to multiply. Paracelsus, born Philippus Theophrastus Bombast von Hohenheim in Switzerland, 1493, revolutionized the alchemical art and is considered to be one of the fathers of modern chemistry and pharmaceutical medicine. A respected physician and university lecturer, Paracelsus was also skilled in all of the arts of the Hermetic philosophy. Paracelsus repeatedly demonstrated the power and effectiveness of alchemically prepared medicines. He stressed to his colleagues the importance of looking carefully into alchemy as a source for medicines far beyond what the current pharmaceutical technology could produce. He was constantly at odds with the medical professionals of this day and was looked upon very suspiciously by the church because of his views and opinions. Because of this, some believe Paracelsus was murdered in 1541. However, his ideas and writings did not go unnoticed. In a strange twist of irony, these helped lead to the end of the age of alchemy and the beginnings of chemistry as we know it today. The writings of Paracelsus shifted the view on alchemy from the pursuit of gold into which it had fallen, back toward its original intent, medicines for the body and soul, leading one to perfect health, wholeness, and initiation into nature's mysteries. Paracelsus recognized man's physical and occult constitution according to Hermetic principles. By the 17th century, there was a growing religion freedom which sparked a wave of interest in all things mystical. Alchemical texts became still more widely available, and scholars openly identified themselves as Rosicrucians, adepts, or alchemists. The spiritual aspects of alchemy appealed to many, apart from any practical works. Robert Boyle, another father of modern chemistry, and Isaac Newton studied alchemy during this time. Newton was fully involved and produced volumes of work. In fact, he considered himself to be more of an alchemist than a physicist or mathematician. His notes indicate that he believed he was very close to success in the alchemical art of metallic transmutation. Boyle was also an ardent scientist, trying to clarify many alchemical concepts which were becoming obscured even in his day. He was a meticulous experimenter and realized the difference between philosophical and unphilosophical workings upon materials. In his very influential book, The Skeptical Chemist, Boyle called into question the number and nature of the elements and called for a more organized terminology. His alchemical insights have been largely misinterpreted to be a debunking of vitalistic alchemy in favor of a more rigorous concentration on the physical facts. It was the beginning of a more mechanical worldview, which would last into the 20th century. Around 1660, King Charles II signed the first charter of the Royal Society, and the study of chemistry soon became an officially recognized science. America also had its alchemists, including several state governors. There were groups in Pennsylvania who brought with them many of the early German alchemical writings, which were quite extensive. By the 1800s, the practice of alchemy had largely disappeared in the outer world in favor of its still young offshoot, chemistry. Alchemy survived underground in various secret societies, which became popular, especially toward the end of the 19th century. In the early 1900s, H. Spencer Lewis received a charter from some of the European contracts to form the ancient mystical order of the Rosicrucians, better known as Amorc, A-M-O-R-C, all capitals. Among other things, they taught laboratory alchemy as it was handed down by earlier Rosicrucian sources. In the early 1940s, one student of these classes was Albert Riedel. Frater Albertus went on to teach these classes himself, and then later split off on his own to establish the Paracelsus Research Society in 1960, which became accredited as Paracelsus College in the early 80s. With the passing of Frater Albertus in 1984, there seemed to be a void in alchemical teachings and a lack of a central point where students could exchange information. By the early 90s, through the efforts of several PRS students, contact with a French group that was made and the Philosophers of Nature, PON, was formulated to fill the void with fresh ideas and to carry on research in alchemy. The PON closed in the late 90s. Now we have the internet, the new Library of Alexandria. As we shall see, chemistry, left to grow unfettered, has nearly come full circle to rediscover the Hermetic philosophy. Dang. Should we go into chapter 2, y'alls? Hey, Code! Oh my gosh. Missy, welcome in. Oh my gosh. I love yous. Heidi, oh my gosh. Dudes. This is very good. Yeah, let's read chapter 2. Chapter 2. Theory of Alchemy. The first law of hermetics. All is from one. Perhaps the most concise exposition of alchemical theory, acknowledged by adepts from all ages, is the famous emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. Legend has it that this tablet predates the biblical flood and was inscribed by Thoth himself on a large plate of alchemically produced emerald. Verba Secretorum Hermetis. Verba Secretorum Hermetis. It is true, certain, and without falsehood, that whatever is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the one wonderful work. As all things are derived from only one thing, as all things are derived from the one only thing, by the will and by the word of the one only one who created it in his mind. So all things owe their existence to this unity by the order of nature, and can be improved by adaptation to that mind. Wow. Right? That's a cool way to say that. Oh, it's not done. Its father is the sun. Its mother is the moon. The wind carries it in its womb, and its nurse is the earth. This thing is the father of all perfect things in the world. Its power is most perfect when it has again been changed into earth. Separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, but carefully and with great judgment and skill. It ascends from earth to heaven, and descends again, new born, to the earth, taking unto itself thereby the power of the above and the below. Thus the splendor of the whole world will be thine, and all darkness shall flee from thee. This is the strongest of all powers, the force of all forces, for it overcometh all subtle things and can penetrate all that is solid. For thus was the world created, and rare combinations and wonders of many kinds are wrought. Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having mastered the 3 parts of the wisdom of the whole world. What I have to say about the masterpiece of the alchemical art, the scholar work, is now ended. And then there's a little bit that's okay. So that was the end of that. But then I think there's just like a little part from the author right here from Robert. The alchemists always admonish their students, quote, know the theory first before attempting the praxis. Quote, they say, quote, you must walk in the book of nature to understand our art, end quote. And then we've got another little bit here. This is going to be by Jean Dubuis, maybe. Quote, the alchemical concept of life and matter lies at the opposite pole of that of the current scientific community. Science is trying to find out how matter created life. Alchemy states that life created matter. Alchemy affirms that at the origin, there is consciousness. Consciousness is the need to be of the absolute. Excuse me. Balls. In order to satisfy this need, consciousness created life, and in order to evolve, life created matter, end quote. Jean Dubuis. Rah. I'm going to read that again because it was amazing. And I was just like struggling. Hey, if it all falls, welcome in. Or if it all fails. So it says again, quote, the alchemical concept of life and matter lies at the opposite pole of that. Lies at the opposite pole of that of the current scientific community. Science is trying to find out how matter created life. Alchemy states that life created matter. Alchemy affirms that at the origin, there is consciousness. Consciousness is the need to be of the absolute. In order to satisfy this need, consciousness created life, and in order to evolve, life created matter. Jean Dubuis. Pond Seminars, 1992. Alchemy is an exploration of the involution of the absolute into matter and its subsequent evolution back to the source, depicted as the Ouroboros, or serpent eating its own tail. There's a very old saying, quote, the all is mind, the universe is mental, end quote. The all, or the one, is that which is the fundamental truth, the substantial reality, i.e., standing under and supporting reality. This all is beyond comprehending or the ability to truly name it, so we use a symbol and call it the all, the absolute, the divine, spirit, the force, the one, only one. I say spirit. It just comes natural to me. Sometimes I say God too. Sometimes I say universe too. Whatever you choose, it is just a symbol so we can talk about it. This is perhaps best described as infinite living mind. Quote, only by mental creation can the all manifest the universe and still remain the all. For if a substance was used or acted upon, it would be separate, and the all would not be all. End quote. The Kabbalion. What we call matter is only that portion of the all we apprehend through our senses. All wasn't in quotes. I don't know why I did that. It's just capitalized. It is only a label we use to designate the manifestation of the all within and range of our limited sensory apparatus. All things are connected, but separated only by their rates of vibration. Each one of us is a unique and complex waveform, though we also share many of the same harmonics. Like fingerprints, we are unique but all related. Modern science takes advantage of this fact in order to identify materials by their vibratory nature in the form of spectral resonances in visible light, infrared, microwaves, etc. Einstein once said, quote, everything is energy, beyond that is divine, end quote. We live in a vast ocean of energy, and everything seen and unseen is a part of it. The alchemists called this energy the celestial fire, prima materia, the first matter, chaos, and many others. Everything around us, though it seems separate and different from ourselves, is one only one. All is from one, is the first law of hermetics. The second law of hermetics, polarity. The one reflecting on itself creates the first movement toward polarity. The division of the one into a most subtle spiritualized energy and dense material energy. The one divided into spirit and matter. Today we might call this energy and matter, which are the same. Today we might call this energy and matter, which are the same. The second law of hermetics is the law of polarity. One of the easiest observations of nature was that everything has its opposite, day to night, male to female, hot to cold, wet to dry. The one divides into active and passive modes, with the active energy constituting the energy of life, and the passive one to the energy of matter. Consider the image of a sine wave, two opposite energies but one wave. The Golden Chain of Homer, a book written about 1730, and highly esteemed by several generations of alchemists, called the active energy celestial nither and the passive energy celestial salt. We call these the volatile and the fixed. These two modes of the one expressed an inherent polarity as well. And then we have a little chart here, the prima materia, celestial salt, celestial niter, fixed, volatile, earth, water, air, fire, salt, mercury, sulfur. Badass. Check this out. It's cool. Okay, focus. Boop. Okay. The four elements. I read everything over here, right? Yeah. The energy of life. Niter, operates through the elements of fire and air. Both are active in nature, but fire is the more active of the two. These are the volatile energies. The energy of matter, salt, operates through the elements of water and earth. These are the fixed energies, water being the more active of the two. These elements have nothing to do with the material bodies of the same name. They are, in fact, energetic states, each with their own unique characteristics. As early as 500 BCE, the ancient called these the four elements and recognized them as the essential qualities by which nature operates and is formed. The element of fire relates to the qualities of radiance, expansion, warmth, and light, anciently known as the hot and dry properties. On the psychological level, fire relates to the superconscious mind. The element of air is penetrating, diffuse, movable, the wet and hot properties. Psychologically, air represents the self conscious mind. The element of water relates to coolness, contraction, mutability or change, the properties of wet and cold. Water is the perfect representation of the subconscious mind. The element of earth relates to the qualities of stability, rest, inertia, strength, and solidity. The dry and cold properties. In the human economy, this is the physical body. And then Aristotle's elements. Hey, welcome in, Tanya. Awesomeo. Aristotle's elements. Modern science agrees that there are four fundamental forces governing the activity of everything in our universe, and though they call them by the names strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetic force, and gravitational force, they are related to the ancient elemental qualities of fire, water, air, and earth, respectively. These elemental qualities and their mixtures from the vehicles through which the alchemical three essentials operate. They are the clothing which we interpret as our physical reality. The three essentials. The three essentials are the alchemical principles of sulfur, mercury, and salt. Again, these terms are not the common materials we associate with these words, such as table salt or the mercury in your thermometer. They describe subtle philosophical principles active in nature. Alchemical salt, or the body of a thing, provides the mixture wherein the sulfur and mercury can act. It is a passive medium, the virgin earth, subject to the fixed energies of water and earth. The salt is influenced by psychic and instinctual forces of the subconscious as well as the conditions affecting the various states of matter. The alchemical sulfur, or soul of a thing, conducts the volatile principles of fire and air, expressing consciousness, intellect, and the true will or personal fire. Alchemical mercury, or the spirit of a thing, is the vital force or life force, and predominates in the elements of air and water, reflecting intellectual, instinctual, and physical and psychic energies. It forms the link or bridge between the higher forces of sulfur and the lower body of matter, the salt. In mythology, Mercury is the messenger between the world of the gods and the world of mortals, the physical world. The energies of celestial niter are often equated with the force of Kundalini, our internal spiritual force, according to Indian philosophy. In alchemy, this is referred to as the secret fire in man. The energies of celestial salt are equated with the force of prana, or vital energy carried by the air we breathe and food we eat. Prana is the primary energy distributed throughout the cosmos, and to maintain physical life and existence. It acts at the instinctual and unconscious levels, as well as being influenced by cosmic cycles and other natural phenomena. The function of Kundalini, or niter, is to increase awareness of our true self and true will by lifting our consciousness and opening us to wider vistas of awareness. At the lowest level of functioning, this is the self-centered ego. At its highest, we become aware of our divine nature. The effects of awakening this secret fire within constitute a true awakening into nature's mysteries, with attendant changes in our perception of how nature operates. This is a direct experience of liberating interior knowledge. The physical body is also changed and improved in functioning, establishing a new center of balance on spiritual and physical levels. The alchemical process seeks to fan this fire, quote, carefully, with great judgment and skill, end quote. In laboratory alchemy, The three essentials of body, soul, and spirit are most important because they provide us a means of manipulating the elements. Many alchemists indicate that the primal elements are too subtle even for the most skilled artist, and that only nature can work at that level. The three essentials are the fruit of the elements, which man can manipulate even at the physical level. As the Polish alchemist Michael Sendivogius, as the Polish alchemist Michael Sendivogius wrote in his New Chemical Light about 1600, quote, "The three principles of things are produced out of the four elements in the following manner: nature, whose power is in her obedience to the will of God, ordained from the very beginning that the four elements should necessarily act on one another. So, in obedience to her behest, the fire began to act on air and produced sulfur. Air acted on water and produced mercury. Water, by its action on earth, produced salt. Earth alone, having nothing to act upon, did not produce anything, but became the nurse or womb of these three principles. In summary, then, the salt represents the body or vehicle, which allows expression of the other two essentials. It is a principle of fixity, consolidation, and focus, the material basis or matrix. The sulfur represents the soul or the consciousness. It is a fiery principle, brightness, the spiritualized male aspect of the one, Kundalini, the character of a thing, the true colors, the intelligence, the divine spark. The mercury represents the spirit, the vital life force, the animating spirit, chi, prana. It is a subtle, spiritualized feminine aspect of the one, pure energy. It bridges the air and water elements, the spiritual world and the material world, the volatile and the fixed. It is the sulfur, the consciousness, which directs the life force through the body. Directing more of the life force through more refined bodies or vehicles is the course of nature and evolution. Alchemical work strives to create and fortify an incorruptible spiritual body of which the physical body is a reflection. The three kingdoms: vegetable, animal, mineral. To the alchemist, everything is alive and consists of a body, soul, and spirit, or salt, sulfur, and mercury. This is true in the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. That the plant world and the animal world are filled with living beings is obvious to all. The mineral world is generally looked upon as non-living because we only understand carbon-based life. But to the alchemist, the mineral world is also teeming with life and consciousness, just as much as the other two kingdoms. The processes of alchemy reach into each of the three kingdoms in order to bring its subjects to a higher degree of perfection. In alchemy, all things are evolving, but considered to be exposed to a wave of engines becoming involved in matter as well, and thus subject to hindrances and impurities from matter, not ready or mature enough to evolve beyond a certain level. Corruptible matter. That's in parentheses. As a result, the energies of life are weakened, and the energies of matter predominate when it is the energies of life which should predominate. The alchemist believed that by understanding nature's laws and applying them with art, that it is possible to remove hindrances to the evolutionary wave so that the energies of life can predominate and lift the subject toward perfection. Nature is the greatest alchemist of all. She has all of time to complete the process of evolution, which is constantly unfolding around us like a symphony. The alchemist seeks to assist in this evolution, utilizing nature's own laws and methods. In the laboratory, the alchemist can demonstrate nature's laws at work and can speed the processes up. Sacred cycles. Early observations of nature revealed that she moves in cycles, and there is a rhythm to everything. Vibration is a periodic event, circular in nature. Everything we see, everything we know of, is vibration, and because of this, there are certain harmonies established between things. From early times, people have observed the stars in order to understand the rhythms of nature. If one intends to help the process of evolution, one has to keep within nature's laws. You would not go out and plant lettuce in the snow. So it is in the laboratory where the alchemist would await a specific time to carry out an operation in order to capture the momentum of subtle forces. There are many such connections between gardening and alchemical works. That was chapter 2. Dang, isn't this good? This is so good. 1042. Spirogyrix. Ah, shit. This stuff is so juicy. Oh, 38. 10 pages more. No, I'm going to call it. I'm sweating pretty good. We'll relax it out. I need to really shower myself to be ready for work tomorrow and all that jazz. But dang right, I would like to keep reading this. It's so juicy. Oh my gosh. Dang. Thank you so much. Yeah, right? Spirogyrix. Yeah, it's so... Spagyrix. Spagyrix, pronounced spagyric, is derived from the Greek words meaning to separate and reunite. Spagyrix. I actually only know that word from this book. I think that's what's at least I think that was my first introduction to that word. So yeah, I love yous. I know I'll be back with more of this juicy book soon. But yeah, I'm also going to go live with little bits of this chapter of The Women Who Run with the Wolves every day until I get through with chapter 14. So tomorrow is a brand new day. It's awesome. So I love yous and I thank you. I hope you have wonderful weekends and I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much. Until then, sweet dreams.